Believe me, always cordially yours, Mr. Austin H. Layard. Tavistock House, Tuesday evening, Apud, 1855. Dear Layard, since I had the pleasure of seeing you again at Miss Couts's, really a greater pleasure to me than I could easily tell you, I have thought a good deal of the duty we all owe you of helping you as much as we can. Being on very intimate terms with Lemon, the editor of Punch, a most affectionate and true-hearted fellow, I mentioned to him in confidence what I had at heart. You will find yourself the subject of their next large cut, and of some lines in an earnest spirit. He again suggested the point to Mr. Shirley Brooks, one of their regular corps, who will do what is right in the Illustrated London News and the Weekly Chronicle, papers that go into the hands of large numbers of people. I have also communicated with Gerald, whom I trust, and have begged him not to be diverted from the straight path of help to the most useful man in England on all possible occasions. Forster I will speak to carefully, and I have no doubt it will quicken him a little. Not that we have anything to complain of in his direction. If you ever see any new loophole, cranny, needle's eye, through which I can present your case to household words, I most earnestly entreat you, as your staunch friend and admirer, you can have no truer, to indicate it to me at any time or season, and to count upon my being Damascus steel to the core. All this is nothing, because all these men and thousands of others dote upon you, but I know it would be a comfort to me, in your hard-fighting place, to be assured of such sympathy, and therefore only I write. You have other recreations for your Sundays in the session, I dare say, than to come here, but it is generally a day on which I do not go out, and when we dine at 5:30 in the easiest way in the world, and smoke in the peacefullest manner. Perhaps one of these Sundays after Easter you might not be indisposed to begin to dig us out. And I should like, on a Saturday of your appointing, to get a few of the serviceable men I know, such as I have mentioned, about you here. Will you think of this, too, and suggest a Saturday for our dining together? I am really ashamed and moved that you should do your part so manfully and be left alone in the conflict. I felt you to be all you are the first moment I saw you. I know you will accept my regard and fidelity for what they are worth. Dear Layard, very heartily yours, Mr. Austin H. Layard. Tavistock House, Tuesday, Apud, 1855. Dear Layard, I shall, of course, observe the strictest silence, at present, in reference to your resolutions. It will be a most acceptable occupation to me to go over them with you, and I have not a doubt of their producing a strong effect out of doors. There is nothing in the present time at once so galling and so alarming to me as the alienation of the people from their own public affairs. I have no difficulty in understanding it. They have had so little to do with the game through all these years of parliamentary reform that they have sullenly laid down their cards and taken to looking on. The players who are left at the table do not see beyond it, conceive that gain and loss and all the interest of the play are in their hands, and will never be wiser until they and the table and the lights and the money are all overturned together. And I believe the discontent to be so much the worse for smouldering, instead of blazing openly, that it is extremely like the general mind of France before the breaking out of the first revolution, and is in danger of being turned by any one of 1,000 accidents, a bad harvest, the last strain too much of aristocratic insolence or incapacity, a defeat abroad, a mere chance at home, with such a devil of a conflagration as never has been beheld since. Meanwhile, all our English tuft-hunting, toad-eating, and other manifestations of accursed gentility, to say nothing of the Lord knows, whose defiances of the proven truth before 650 men, are expressing themselves every day. So every day, the disgusted millions with this unnatural gloom are confirmed and hardened in the very worst of moods. Finally, round all this is an atmosphere of poverty, hunger, and ignorant desperation, of the mere existence of which perhaps not one man in 1,000 of those not actually enveloped in it, through the whole extent of this country, has the least idea. It seems to me an absolute impossibility to direct the spirit of the people at this pass until it shows itself. If they begin to bestir themselves in the vigorous national manner, if they would appear in political reunion, array themselves peacefully but in vast numbers against a system that they know to be rotten altogether, make themselves heard like the sea all round this island. I for one should be in such a movement heart and soul, and should think it a duty of the plainest kind to go along with it and try to guide it by all possible means. But you can no more help a people who do not help themselves than you can help a man who does not help himself. And until the people can be got up from the lethargy, which is an awful symptom of the advanced state of their disease, I know of nothing that can be done beyond keeping their wrongs continually before them. I shall hope to see you soon after you come back. Your speeches at Aberdeen are most admirable, manful, and earnest. I would have such speeches at every market cross, and in every town hall, and among all sorts and conditions of men, up in the very balloons, and down in the very diving bells. Ever cordially yours, Mr. John Forster. Tavistock House, Saturday, Apeth, 1855. My dear Forster, I cannot express to you how very much delighted I am with the Steel. I think it incomparably the best of the series. The pleasanter humanity of the subject may commend it more to one's liking, but that again requires a delicate handling, which you have given to it in a most charming manner. It is surely not possible to approach a man with a finer sympathy, and the assertion of the claims of literature throughout is of the noblest and most gallant kind. I don't agree with you about the serious papers in The Spectator, which I think, whether they be Steele's or Addison's, are generally as indifferent as the humor of The Spectator is delightful. And I have always had a notion that Prue understood her husband very well and held him in consequence, when a fonder woman with less show of caprice must have let him go. But these are points of opinion. The paper is masterly, and all I have got to say is that if had a grain of the honest sentiment with which it overflows, he never would or could have made so great a mistake. Ever affectionately, Mr. Mark Lemon. Tavistock House, Thursday, Apeth, 1855. On the death of an infant. My dear Mark, I will call for you at 2 and go with you to Highgate by all means. Leach and I called on Tuesday evening and left our loves. I have not written to you since, because I thought it best to leave you quiet for a day. I have no need to tell you, my dear fellow, that my thoughts have been constantly with you, and that I have not forgotten, and never shall forget, who sat up with me one night when a little place in my house was left empty. It is hard to lose any child, but there are many blessed sources of consolation in the loss of a baby. There is a beautiful thought in Fielding's Journey from This World to the Next, where the baby he had lost many years before was found by him all radiant and happy, building him a bower in the Elysian fields where they were to live together when he came. Ever affectionately yours. P.S. Our kindest loves to Mrs. Lemon. Mr. Clarkson Stanfield, R.A. Tavistock House, Sunday, May 20th, 1855. My dear Stanny, I have a little lark in contemplation, if you will help it to fly. Collins has done a melodrama, a regular old-style melodrama, in which there is a very good notion. I am going to act it as an experiment in the Children's Theatre here. I Mark, Collins, Egg, and my daughter Mary the whole dram, hers, our families and yours the whole audience, for I want to make the stage large and shouldn't have room for above 25 spectators. Now there is only one scene in the piece, and that, my tarry lad, is the inside of a lighthouse. Will you come and paint it for us one night, and we'll all turn to and help? It is a mere wall, of course, but Mark and I have sworn that you must do it. If you will say yes, I should like to have the tiny flats made after you have looked at the place, and not before. On Wednesday in this week I am good for a steak and the play, if you will make your own appointment here, or any day next week except Thursday. Write me a line in reply. We mean to burst on an astonished world with the melodrama without any note of preparation. So don't say a syllable to Forster if you should happen to see him. Ever affectionately yours, Mr. Clarkson Stanfield, R.A. Tavistock House, Tuesday afternoon, 6 o'clock, May 22nd, 1855. My dear Stanny, your note came while I was out walking. Even if I had been at home, I could not have managed to dine together today, being under a beastly engagement to dine out. Unless I hear from you to the contrary, I shall expect you here sometime tomorrow and will remain at home. I only wait your instructions to get the little canvases made. Oh, what a pity it is not the outside of the lighthouse, with the sea rowling agin it. Never mind, we'll get an effect out of the inside, and there's a storm and a shipwreck off, and the great ambition of my life will be achieved at last, in the wearing of a pair of very coarse petticoat trousers. So hurrah for the salt sea, mate, and bouse up. Ever affectionately, Dickie. Mr. Mark Lemon. Tavistock House, May 23, 1855. My dear Mark, Stanley says he is only sorry it is not the outside of the lighthouse with a raging sea and a transparent light. He enters into the project with the greatest delight, and I think we shall make a capital thing of it. It now occurs to me that we may as well do a farce too. I should like to get in a little part for Katie, and also for Charlie, if it were practicable. What do you think of Animal Mag? You and I in our old parts. Collins, Geoffrey, Charlie, the Marquise, Katie and Mary, or Georgina, the two ladies. Can you think of anything merry that is better? It ought to be broad, as a relief to the melodrama, unless we could find something funny with a story in it too. I rather incline myself to Animal Mag. Will you come round and deliver your sentiments? Ever affectionately, Mr. Frank Stone, A.R.A. Tavistock House, Thursday, May 24, 1855. My dear Stone, great projects are afoot here for a grown-up play in about 3 weeks' time, former schoolroom arrangements to be reversed, large stage and small audience. Stanfield bent on desperate effects, and all day long with his coat off, up to his eyes in distemper colors. Will you appear in your celebrated character of Mr. Nightingale? I want to wind up with that popular farce, we all playing our old parts. Ever affectionately, Mr. Frank Stone, A.R.A. Tavistock House, May 24, 1855. My dear Stone, that's right, you will find the words come back very quickly. Why, of course your people are to come, and if Stanfield don't astonish 'em, I'm a Dutchman. Oh heaven, if you could hear the ideas he proposes to me, making even my hair stand on end. Will you get Marcus or some similar bright creature to copy out old Nightingale's part for you, and then return the book? This is the prompt book, the only one I have, and Katie and Georgina, being also in wild excitement, want to write their parts out with all dispatch. Ever affectionately, Mr. W. Wilkie Collins. Tavistock House, Thursday, May 24, 1855. My dear Collins, I shall expect you tomorrow evening at Household Words. I have written a little ballad for Mary, the story of the ship's carpenter and the little boy in the shipwreck. Let us close up with Mr. Nightingale's diary. Will you look whether you have a book of it or your part? All other matters and things hereunto belonging when we meet. Ever faithfully, Mrs. Trollope. Tavistock House, Tuesday morning, June 19, 1855. My dear Mrs. Trollope, I was out of town on Sunday, or I should have answered your note immediately on its arrival. I cannot have the pleasure of seeing the famous medium tonight, for I have some theatricals at home, but I fear I shall not in any case be a good subject for the purpose, as I altogether want faith in the thing. I have not the least belief in the awful unseen world being available for evening parties at so much per night, and although I should be ready to receive enlightenment from any source, I must say I have very little hope of it from the spirits who express themselves through mediums, as I have never yet observed them to talk anything but nonsense, of which, as Carlyle would say, there is probably enough in these days of ours, and in all days among mere mortality. Very faithfully yours, Mr. Clarkson Stanfield, R.A. Tavistock House, Wednesday, June 20th, 1855. My dear Stanley, I write a hasty note to let you know that last night was perfectly wonderful. Such an audience, Such a brilliant success from first to last. The Queen had taken it into her head in the morning to go to Chatham and had carried Phipps with her. He wrote to me asking if it were possible to give him a quarter of an hour. I got through that time before the overture, and he came without any dinner, so influenced by eager curiosity. Lemon and I did every conceivable absurdity, I think, in the farce, and they never left off laughing. At supper I proposed your health, which was drunk with 9 times 9 and 3 cheers over. We then turned to at Scotch reels, having had no exercise, and danced in the maddest way until 5 this morning. It is as much as I can do to guide the pen. With loves to Mrs. Stanfield and all. Ever most affectionately yours, Mr. W. C. Macready. Tavistock House, Saturday, June 30th, 1855. My very dear Macready, I write shortly after a day's work at my desk, rather than lose a post in answering your enthusiastic, earnest, and young, how young, in all the best side of youth, letter. To tell you the truth, I confidently expected to hear from you. I knew that if there were a man in the world who would be interested in, and who would approve of, my giving utterance to whatever was in me at this time, it would be you. I was as sure of you as of the sun this morning. The subject is surrounded by difficulties. The association is sorely in want of able men, and the resistance of all the phalanx who have an interest in corruption and mismanagement is the resistance of a struggle against death. But the great, first, strong necessity is to rouse the people up, to keep them stirring and vigilant, to carry the war dead into the tent of such creatures as, and ring into their souls, or what stands for them, that the time for dandy insolence is gone forever. It may be necessary to come to that law of primogeniture, I have no love for it, or to come to even greater things, but this is the first service to be done, and unless it is done, there is not a chance. For this, and to encourage timid people to come in, I went to Drury Lane the other night, and I wish you had been there and had seen and heard the people. The association will be proud to have your name and gift. When we sat down on the stage the other night, and were waiting a minute or two to begin, I said to Morley, the chairman, a thoroughly fine, earnest fellow, "This reminds me so of one of my dearest friends, with a melancholy so curious that I don't know whether the place feels familiar to me or strange." He was full of interest directly, and we went on talking of you until the moment of his getting up to open the business. They are going to print my speech in a tract form and send it all over the country. I corrected it for the purpose last night. We are all well. Charlie in the city, all the boys at home for the holidays, 3 prizes brought home triumphantly, 1 from the Boulogne waters and 1 from Wimbledon, I taking Dives into a new book, and runs at leapfrog over household words, and Anne going to be married, which is the only bad news. Catherine, Georgie, Mary, Katie, Charlie, and all the rest send multitudes of loves. Ever, my dearest Macready, with unalterable affection and attachment. Your faithful friend, Mr. W. Wilkie Collins. 3 Albion Villas, Folkestone, Tuesday, July 17th, 1855. My dear Collins, Walter goes back to school on the 1st of August. Will you come out of school to this breezy vacation on the same day, or rather this day fortnight, July 31st, for that is the day on which he leaves us, and we begin, here's a parent, to be able to be comfortable. Why, a boy of that age should seem to have on at all times 150 pair of double-soled boots, and to be always jumping a bottom stair with the whole 150, I don't know, but the woeful fact is within my daily experience. We have a very pleasant little house, overlooking the sea, and I think you will like the place. It rained, in honor of our arrival, with the greatest vigor yesterday. I went out after dinner to buy some nails, you know the arrangements that would be then in progress, and I stopped in the rain, about halfway down a steep, crooked street, like a crippled ladder, to look at a little coachmaker's, where there had just been a sale. Speculating on the insolvent coachmaker's business, and what kind of coaches he could possibly have expected to get orders for in Folkestone, I thought, what would bring together 50 people now, in this little street, at this little rainy minute? On the instant, a brewer's van, with 2 mad horses in it, and the harness dangling about them, like the trappings of those horses you are acquainted with, who bolted through the starry courts of heaven, dashed by me, and in that instant, such a crowd as would have accumulated in Fleet Street sprang up magically. Men fell out of windows, dived out of doors, plunged down courts, precipitated themselves down steps, came down waterspouts instead of rain, I think, and I never saw so wonderful an instance of the gregarious effect of an excitement. A man, a woman, and a child had been thrown out on the horses taking fright and the reins breaking. The child is dead, and the woman very ill but will probably recover, and the man has a hand broken and other mischief done to him. Let me know what Wigan says. If he does not take the play, and readily too, I would recommend you not to offer it elsewhere. You have gained great reputation by it, have done your position a deal of good, and as I think, stand so well with it, that it is a pity to engender the notion that you care to stand better. Ever faithfully, Mr. W. H. Wills. Folkestone, September 16th, 1855. My dear Wills, Scrooge is delighted to find that Bob Cratchit is enjoying his holiday in such a delightful situation, and he says, with that warmth of nature which has distinguished him since his conversion, "Make the most of it, Bob, make the most of it." I have not a word of news. I am steeped in my story, and rise and fall by turns into enthusiasm and depression. Ever faithfully, The Hun, Mrs. Watson. Folkestone, Sunday, Sept. 16th, 1855. My dear Mrs. Watson, this will be a short letter, but I hope not unwelcome. If you knew how often I write to you, in intention, I don't know where you would find room for the correspondence. Catherine tells me that you want to know the name of my new book. I cannot bear that you should know it from anyone but me. It will not be made public until the end of October. The title is Nobody's Fault. Keep it as the apple of your eye, an expressive form of speech, though I have not the least idea of what it means. Next, I wish to tell you that I have appointed to read at Peterborough on Tuesday, the 18th of December. I have told the Dean that I cannot accept his hospitality and that I am going with Mr. Wills to the inn. Therefore, I shall be absolutely at your disposal and shall be more than disappointed if you don't stay with us. As the time approaches, will you let me know your arrangements and whether Mr. Wills can bespeak any rooms for you in arranging for me? Georgie will give you our address in Paris as soon as we shall have settled there. We shall leave here, I think, in rather less than a month from this time. You know my state of mind as well as I do. Indeed, if you don't know it much better, it is not the state of mind I take it to be. How I work, how I walk, how I shut myself up, how I roll down hills and climb up cliffs, how the new story is everywhere, heaving in the sea, flying with the clouds, blowing in the wind, how I settle to nothing and wonder in the old way at my own incomprehensibility. I am getting on pretty well, have done the first 2 numbers, and am just now beginning the 3rd, which egotistical announcements I make to you because I know you will be interested in them. All the house send their kindest loves. I think of inserting an advertisement in the Times, offering to submit the Plornishkinter to public competition and to receive £50,000 if such another boy cannot be found, and to pay £5 my fortune if he can. Ever, my dear Mrs. Watson, affectionately yours, Mr. W. Wilkie Collins. Folkestone, Sunday, Sept. 30th, 1855. My dear Collins, welcome from the bosom of the deep. If a hornpipe will be acceptable to you at any time, as a reminder of what the 3 brothers were always doing, I shall be, as the chairman says at Mr. Evans's, happy to oblige. I have almost finished number 3, in which I have relieved my indignant soul with a scarifier. Sticking at it day after day, I am the incompletest letter-writer imaginable, seem to have no idea of holding a pen for any other purpose but that book. My fair Laura has not yet reported concerning Paris, but I should think will have done so before I see you. And now to that point. I purpose being in town on Monday, the 8th, when I have promised to dine with Forster. At the office, between 11:30 and 1 that day, I will expect you, unless I hear from you to the contrary. Of course, the H.W. stories are at your disposition. If you should have completed your idea, we might breakfast together at the G on the Tuesday morning and discuss it. Or I shall be in town after 10 on the Monday night. At the office, I will tell you the idea of the Christmas number, which will put you in train, I hope, for a story. I have postponed the shipwreck idea for a year, as it seemed to require more force from me than I could well give it with the weight of a new start upon me. All here send their kindest remembrances. We missed you very much, and the Plorn was quite inconsolable. We slide down CSR occasionally. They launched the boat, the rapid building of which you remember, the other day. All the fishermen in the place, all the nondescripts, and all the boys pulled at it with ropes from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. every now and then the ropes broke, and they all fell down in the shingle. The obstinate way in which the beastly thing wouldn't move was so exasperating that I wondered they didn't shoot it or burn it. Whenever it moved an inch they all cheered. Whenever it wouldn't move they all swore. Finally, when it was quite given over, someone tumbled against it accidentally, as it appeared to me, looking out at my window here, and it instantly shot about a mile into the sea, and they all stood looking at it helplessly. Kind regards to Pigart, in which all unites. Ever faithfully, Mr. W. C. Macready. Folkestone, Thursday, Oct. 4th, 1855. My dearest Macready, I have been hammering away in that strenuous manner at my book, that I have had leisure for scarcely any letters but such as I have been obliged to write, having a horrible temptation when I lay down my book pen to run out on the breezy downs here, tear up the hills, slide down the same, and conduct myself in a frenzied manner for the relief that only exercise gives me. Your letter to Miss Coutts in behalf of little Miss Warner I dispatched straightway. She is at present among the Pyrenees, and a letter from her crossed that one of mine in which I enclosed yours last week. Pray stick to that dim notion you have of coming to Paris. How delightful it would be to see your aged countenance and perfectly bald head in that capital. It will renew your youth to visit a theatre, previously dining at the Trois Freres, in company with the jocund boy who now addresses you. Do stick to it. You will be pleased to hear, I know, that Charlie has gone into Baring's house under very auspicious circumstances. Mr. Bates, of that firm, had done me the kindness to place him at the broker's where he was. And when said Bates wrote to me a fortnight ago to say that an excellent opening had presented itself at Baring's, he added that the brokers gave Charlie so high a character for ability and zeal that it would be unfair to receive him as a volunteer, and he must begin at a £50 salary, to which I graciously consented. As to the suffrage, I have lost hope even in the ballot. We appear to me to have proved the failure of representative institutions without an educated and advanced people to support them. What with teaching people to keep in their stations, what with bringing up the soul and body of the land to be a good child, or to go to the beer shop, to go a-poaching and go to the devil, what with having no such thing as a middle class, for though we are perpetually bragging of it as our safety, it is nothing but a poor fringe on the mantle of the upper, what with flunkeyism, toadyism, letting the most contemptible lords come in for all manner of places, reading the court circular for the New Testament, I do reluctantly believe that the English people are habitually consenting parties to the miserable imbecility into which we have fallen, and never will help themselves out of it. Who is to do it? If anybody is, God knows. But at present, we are on the downhill road to being conquered, and the people will be content to bear it, sing Rule Britannia, and will not be saved. In number 3 of my new book, I have been blowing off a little of indignant steam which would otherwise blow me up, and with God's leave, I shall walk in the same all the days of my life. But I have no present political faith or hope, not a grain. I am going to read the Carol here tomorrow in a long carpenter's shop, which looks far more alarming as a place to hear in than the town hall at Birmingham. Kindest loves from all to your dear sister, Kate, and the darlings. It is blowing a gale here from the southwest and raining like mad. Ever most affectionately, Mrs. Charles Dickens. 2 Rue St. Florentin, Tuesday, Oct. 16th, 1855. My dearest Catherine, we have had the most awful job to find a place that would in the least suit us, for Paris is perfectly full, and there is nothing to be got at any sane price. However, we have found 2 apartments, an entresol and a first floor, with a kitchen and servants' room at the top of the house, at number 49, Avenue des Champs-Élysées. You must be prepared for a regular continental abode. There is only 1 window in each room, but the front apartments all look upon the main street of the Champs-Élysées, and the view is delightfully cheerful. There are also plenty of rooms. They are not over and above well furnished, but by changing furniture from rooms we don't care for to rooms we do care for, we shall be able to make them home-like and presentable. I think the situation itself almost the finest in Paris, and the children will have a window from which to look on the busy life outside. We could have got a beautiful apartment in the Rue Faubourg Saint-Honoré for a very little more, most elegantly furnished, but the greater part of it was on a courtyard, and it would never have done for the children. This, that I have taken for 6 months, is 700 francs per month, and 20 more for the concierge. What you have to expect is a regular French residence, which a little habitation will make pretty and comfortable, with nothing showy in it, but with plenty of rooms, and with that wonderful street in which the Barrière de l'Étoile stands outside. The amount of rooms is the great thing, and I believe it to be the place best suited for us, at a not unreasonable price in Paris. Georgina and Lady Olive send their loves. Georgina and I add ours to Mamie, Katie, the Plorn, and Harry. Ever affectionately, Mr. W. H. Wills, 49, Avenue des Champs-Élysées, Paris. Friday, Oct. 19th, 1855. My dear Wills, after going through unheard-of bedevilments, of which you shall have further particulars as soon as I come right side upwards, which may happen in a day or 2, we are at last established here in a series of closets, but a great many of them, with all Paris perpetually passing under the windows. Letters may have been wandering after me to that home in the Rue de Balzac, which is to be the subject of more lawsuits between the man who let it to me and the man who wouldn't let me have possession than any other house that ever was built. But I have had no letters at all, and have been, a maniac since last Monday. I will try my hand at that paper for H.W. tomorrow, if I can get a yard of flooring to sit upon. But we have really been in that state of topsy-turvyhood that even that has been an unattainable luxury, and may yet be for 48 hours or so, for anything I see to the contrary. Ever faithfully, Mr. W. H. Wills, 49, Avenue des Champs-Élysées, Paris. Sunday night, Oct. 21st, 1855. My dear Wills, coming here from a walk this afternoon, I found your letter of yesterday awaiting me. I send this reply by my brother Alfred, who is here, and who returns home tomorrow. You should get it at the office early on Tuesday. I will go to work tomorrow, and will send you, please God, an article by Tuesday's post, which you will get on Wednesday forenoon. Look carefully to the proof, as I shall not have time to receive it for correction. When you arrange about sending your parcels, will you ascertain and communicate to me the prices of telegraph messages? It will save me trouble, having no foreign servant, though French is in that respect a trump, and may be useful on an emergency. I have 2 floors here, entresol and first, in a doll's house, but really pretty within, and the view without astounding, as you will say when you come. The house is on the Exposition side, about half a quarter of a mile above Franconi's, of course on the other side of the way, and close to the Jardin de Hiver. Each room has but 1 window in it, but we have no fewer than 6 rooms, besides the back ones, looking on the Champs-Élysées, with the wonderful life perpetually flowing up and down. We have no spare room, but excellent stowage for the whole family, including a capital dressing room for me, and a really slap-up kitchen near the stairs. Damage for the whole, 700 francs a month. But sir, when Georgina, the servants, and I were here for the first night, Catherine and the rest being at Boulogne, I heard Georgie restless, turned out, asked, "What's the matter?" "Oh, it's dreadfully dirty. I can't sleep for the smell of my room." Imagine all my stage managerial energies multiplied at daybreak by 1,000. Imagine the porter, the porter's wife, the porter's wife's sister, a feeble upholsterer of enormous age from round the corner, and all his workmen, 4 boys, summoned. Imagine the partners in the proprietorship of the apartment and Marshal Little Man with Francois Prussian beard, also summoned. Imagine your inimitable chief briefly explaining that dirt is not in his way, and that he is driven to madness, and that he devotes himself to no coat and a dirty face, until the apartment is thoroughly purified. Imagine co-proprietors at first astounded, then urging that it's not the custom, then wavering, then affected, then confiding their utmost private sorrows to the inimitable, offering new carpets, accepted, embraces, not accepted, and really responding like French bricks. Sallow, unbrushed, unshorn, awful, stalks the inimitable through the apartment until last night. Then all the improvements were concluded, and I do really believe the place to be now worth 800 or 900 francs per month. You must picture it as the smallest place you ever saw, but as exquisitely cheerful and vivacious, clean as anything human can be, and with a moving panorama always outside, which is Paris in itself. You mention a letter from Miss Coutts as to Mrs. Brown's illness, which you say is enclosed to Mrs. Charles Dickens. It is not enclosed, and I am mad to know where she writes from that I may write to her. Pray set this right, for her uneasiness will be greatly intensified if she have no word from me. I thought we were to give £1,700 for the house at Gad's Hill. Are we bound to £1,800? Considering the improvements to be made, it is a little too much, isn't it? I have a strong impression that at the utmost we were only to divide the difference, and not to pass £1,750. You will set me right if I am wrong, but I don't think I am. I write very hastily, with the piano playing and Alfred looking for this. Ever, my dear Wills, faithfully. Mr. W. H. Wills. 49, Avenue des Champs-Élysées. Wednesday, Act. 24th, 1855. My dear Wills, in the Gad's Hill matter, I too would like to try the effect of not budging, so do not go beyond the £1,700. Considering what I should have to expend on the one hand and the low price of stock on the other, I do not feel disposed to go beyond that mark. They won't let a purchaser escape for the sake of the £100, I think. And Austen was strongly of opinion, when I saw him last, that £1,700 was enough. You cannot think how pleasant it is to me to find myself generally known and liked here. If I go into a shop to buy anything and give my card, the officiating priest or priestess brightens up and says, "Ah, c'est l'écrivain célèbre, Monsieur porte un nom très distingué. Mais, je suis honoré et intéressé de voir Monsieur Dickens. Je lis un des livres de Monsieur tous les jours," in the Monitor, and a man who brought some little vases home last night said, "On connaît bien en France que Monsieur Dickens prenne sa position sur la dignité de la littérature. Ah, ces grandes choses, et ces caractères," this was to Georgina while he unpacked, "sont si spirituellement tournés, cette Madame Todgers, ah, quelle est drôle et précisément comme une dame que je connais à Calais." You cannot have any doubt about this place, if you will only recollect it, is the great main road from the Place de la Concorde to the Barrière de l'Étoile. Ever faithfully, Monsieur Regnier. Wednesday, November 21st, 1855. My dear Regnier, in thanking you for the box you kindly sent me the day before yesterday, let me thank you 1,000 times for the delight we derived from the representation of your beautiful and admirable piece. I have hardly ever been so affected and interested in any theatre. Its construction is in the highest degree excellent, the interest absorbing, and the whole conducted by a masterly hand to a touching and natural conclusion. Through the whole story from beginning to end, I recognize the true spirit and feeling of an artist, and I most heartily offer you and your fellow laborer my felicitations on the success you have achieved. That it will prove a very great and a lasting one, I cannot for a moment doubt. Oh, my friend, if I could see an English actress with but 1/100th part of the nature and art of Madame Plessy, I should believe our English theatre to be in a fair way towards its regeneration. But I have no hope of ever beholding such a phenomenon. I may as well expect ever to see upon an English stage an accomplished artist, able to write and to embody what he writes, like you. Faithfully yours, ever. Madame Viardot, 49, Avenue des Champs-Élysées, Monday, 3rd, 1855. Dear Madame Viardot, Mrs. Dickens tells me that you have only borrowed the first number of Little Dorrit and are going to send it back. Pray do nothing of the sort, and allow me to have the great pleasure of sending you the succeeding numbers as they reach me. I have had such delight in your great genius, and have so high an interest in it and admiration of it, that I am proud of the honor of giving you a moment's intellectual pleasure. Believe me, very faithfully yours. The Hun, Mrs. Watson. Tavistock House, Sunday, 3rd, 1855. My dear Mrs. Watson, I have a moment in which to redeem my promise of putting you in possession of my little friend number 2 before the general public. It is, of course, at the disposal of your circle, but until the month is out, is understood to be a prisoner in the castle. If I had time to write anything, I should still quite vainly try to tell you what interest and happiness I had in once more seeing you among your dear children. Let me congratulate you on your Eton boys. They are so handsome, frank, and genuinely modest that they charmed me. A kiss to the little fair-haired darling and the rest, the love of my heart to every stone in the old house. Enormous effect at Sheffield, but really not a better audience perceptibly than at Peterborough, for that could hardly be, but they were more enthusiastically demonstrative, and they took the line, and to Tiny Tim, who did not die, with a most prodigious shout and roll of thunder. Ever, my dear friend, most faithfully yours. 1856. Narrative. Charles Dickens, having taken an apartment in Paris for the winter months, 49, Avenue des Champs-Élysées, was there with his family until the middle of May. He much enjoyed this winter sojourn, meeting many old friends, making new friends, and interchanging hospitalities with the French artistic world. He had also many friends from England to visit him. Mr. Wilkie Collins had an appartement de garçon hard by, and the two companions were constantly together. The Rev. James White and his family also spent their winter at Paris, having taken an apartment at 49, Avenue des Champs-Élysées, and the girls of the two families had the same masters and took their lessons together. After the Whites' departure, Mr. Macready paid Charles Dickens a visit, occupying the vacant apartment. During this winter, Charles Dickens was, however, constantly backwards and forwards between Paris and London on household words business, and was also at work on his Little Dorrit. While in Paris, he sat for his portrait to the great Henri Scheffer. It was exhibited at the Royal Academy exhibition of this year and is now in the National Portrait Gallery. The summer was again spent at Boulogne, and once more at the Villa des Moulineaux, where he received constant visits from English friends, Mr. Wilkie Collins taking up his quarters for many weeks at a little cottage in the garden. And there, the idea of another play, to be acted at Tavistock House, was first started. Many of our letters for this year have reference to this play, and will show the interest which Charles Dickens took in it, and the immense amount of care and pains given by him to the careful carrying out of this favorite amusement. The Christmas number of Household Words, written by Charles Dickens and Mr. Collins, called The Wreck of the Golden Mary, was planned by the two friends during this summer holiday. It was in this year that one of the great wishes of his life was to be realized, the much-coveted house, Gad's Hill Place, having been purchased by him, and the check written on the 14th of March, on a Friday, as he writes to his sister-in-law in the letter of this date. He frequently remarked that all the important, and so far fortunate, events of his life had happened to him on a Friday, so that, contrary to the usual superstition, that day had come to be looked upon by his family as his lucky day. The allusion to the plainness of Miss Boyle's handwriting is good-humoredly ironical, that lady's writing being by no means famous for its legibility. The Anne mentioned in the letter to his sister-in-law, which follows the one to Miss Boyle, was the faithful servant who had lived with the family so long, and who, having left to be married the previous year, had found it a very difficult matter to recover from her sorrow at this parting, and the godfather's present was for a son of Mr. Edmund Yates. The humble petition, was written to Mr. Wilkie Collins during that gentleman's visit to Paris. The explanation of the remark to Mr. Will's 6th April, that he had paid the money to Mr. Poole, is that Charles Dickens was the trustee through whom the dramatist received his pension. The letter to the Duke of Devonshire has reference to the peace illuminations after the Crimean War. The M. Forgues, for whom, at Mr. Collins's request, he writes a short biography of himself, was the editor of the Revue des Deux Mondes. The speech at the London Tavern was on behalf of the artist's benevolent fund. Miss Kate Macready had sent some clever poems to Household Words, with which Charles Dickens had been much pleased. He makes allusion to these in our 2 remaining letters to Mr. Macready. I did write it for you. Letter to Mrs. Watson, 17th October, refers to that part of Little Dorrit which treats of the visit of the Dorrit family to the great St. Bernard, an expedition which it will be remembered he made himself, in company with Mr. and Mrs. Watson and other friends. The letter to Mrs. Horne refers to a joke about the name of a friend of this lady's, who had once been brought by her to Tavistock House. The letter to Mr. Mitten concerns the lighting of the little theatre at Tavistock House. Our last letter is in answer to one from Mr. Kent, asking him to sit to Mr. John Watkins for his photograph. We should add, however, that he did subsequently give this gentleman some sittings. Mr. W. H. Wills, 49 Champs-Élysées, Sunday, Jan. 6th, 1856. My dear Wills, I should like Morley to do a strike article and to work into it the greater part of what is here. But I cannot represent myself as holding the opinion that all strikes among this unhappy class of society, who find it so difficult to get a peaceful hearing, are always necessarily wrong, because I don't think so. To open a discussion of the question by saying that the men are of course entirely and painfully in the wrong, surely would be monstrous in anyone. Show them to be in the wrong here, but in the name of the eternal heavens show why, upon the merits of this question. Nor can I possibly adopt the representation that these men are wrong, because, by throwing themselves out of work, they throw other people, possibly without their consent. If such a principle had anything in it, there could have been no civil war, no raising by Hampden of a troop of horse, to the detriment of Buckinghamshire agriculture, no self-sacrifice in the political world. And oh, good God, when treats of the suffering of wife and children, can he suppose that these mistaken men don't feel it in the depths of their hearts, and don't honestly and honorably, most devoutly and faithfully believe that for those very children, when they shall have children, they are bearing all these miseries now? I hear from Mrs. Phillineau that her husband was obliged to leave town suddenly before he could get your parcel. Consequently, he has not brought it, and white sovereigns, unless you have got them back again, are either lying out of circulation somewhere or are being spent by somebody else. I will write again on Tuesday. My article is to begin the enclosed. Ever faithfully, Mr. Mark Lemon, 49 Champs-Élysées, Paris, Monday, Jan. 7th, 1856. My dear Mark, I want to know how Jack and the Beanstalk goes. I have a notion from a notice, a favorable notice, however, which I saw in Galignani, that Webster has let down the comic business. In a piece at the Ambigue, called The Rentrée à Paris, a mere scene in honor of the return of the troops from the Crimea the other day, there is a novelty which I think it worth letting you know of, as it is easily available either for a serious or a comic interest, the introduction of a supposed electric telegraph. The scene is the railway terminus at Paris, with the electric telegraph office on the prompt side and the clerks with their backs to the audience, much more real than if they were, as they infallibly would be, staring about the house, working the needles, and the little bell perpetually ringing. There are assembled to greet the soldiers all the easily and naturally imagined elements of interest: old veteran fathers, young children, agonized mothers, sisters and brothers, girl lovers, each impatient to know of his or her own object of solicitude. Enter to these a certain marquis, full of sympathy for all, who says, "My friends, I am one of you. My brother has no commission yet. He is a common soldier. I wait for him as well as all brothers and sisters here wait for their brothers. Tell me whom you are expecting. Then they all tell him. Then he goes into the telegraph office and sends a message down the line to know how long the troops will be. Bell rings. Answer handed out on slip of paper. Delay on the line. Troops will not arrive for a quarter of an hour. General disappointment. But we have this brave electric telegraph, my friends, says the Marquis. Give me your little messages and I'll send them off. General rush round the Marquis. Exclamations. How's Henry? My love to George's. Has Guillaume forgotten Elise? Is my son wounded? Is my brother promoted? Etc. etc. Marquis composes tumult. Sends message. Such a regiment, such a company. Elise's love to George's. Little bell rings. Slip of paper handed out. George's in 10 minutes will embrace his Elise. Sends her 1,000 kisses. Marquis sends message. Such a regiment, such a company. Is my son wounded? Little bell rings. Slip of paper handed out. No, he has not yet upon him those marks of bravery in the glorious service of his country which his dear old father bears, father being lamed and invalided. Last of all, the widowed mother. Marquis sends message. Such a regiment, such a company. Is my only son safe? Little bell rings. Slip of paper handed out. He was first upon the heights of Alma. General cheer. Bell rings again. Another slip of paper handed out. He was made a sergeant at Inkerman. Another cheer. Bell rings again. Another slip of paper handed out. He was made color sergeant at Sebastopol. Another cheer. Bell rings again. Another slip of paper handed out. He was the first man who leaped with the French banner on the Malakoff Tower. Tremendous cheer. Bell rings again. Another slip of paper handed out. But he was struck down there by a musket ball, and troops have proceeded. Will arrive in half a minute after this. Mother abandons all hope. General commiseration. Troops rush in, down a platform. Son only wounded, and embraces her. As I have said, and as you will see, this is available for any purpose. But done with equal distinction and rapidity, it is a tremendous effect, and got by the simplest means in the world. There is nothing in the piece, but it was impossible not to be moved and excited by the telegraph part of it. I hope you have seen something of Stanley, and have been to pantomimes with him, and have drunk to the absent Dick. I miss you, my dear old boy, at the play woefully, and miss the walk home and the partings at the corner of Tavistock Square. And when I go by myself, I come home stewing Little Dorrit in my head, and the best part of my play is, or ought to be, in Gordon Street. I have written to Beaucourt about taking that breezy house, a little improved, for the summer, and I hope you and yours will come there often and stay there long. My present idea, if nothing should arise to unroot me sooner, is to stay here until the middle of May, then plant the family at Boulogne, and come with Catherine and Georgie home for 2 or 3 weeks. When I shall next run across I don't know, but I suppose next month. We are up to our knees in mud here. Literally in vehement despair, I walked down the avenue outside the Barrière de l'Étoile here yesterday, and went straight on among the trees. I came back with top boots of mud on. Nothing will cleanse the streets. Numbers of men and women are forever scooping and sweeping in them, and they are always one lake of yellow mud. All my trousers go to the tailor's every day and are ravelled out at the heels every night. Washing is awful. Tell Mrs. Lemon, with my love, that I have bought her some eau d'or, in grateful remembrance of her knowing what it is, and crushing the tyrant of her existence by resolutely refusing to be put down when that monster would have silenced her. You may imagine the loves and messages that are now being poured in upon me by all of them, so I will give none of them, though I am pretending to be very scrupulous about it, and am looking, I have no doubt, as if I were writing them down with the greatest care. Ever affectionately, Mr. W. Wilkie Collins. 49 Champs-Élysées, Saturday, Jan. 19th, 1856. My dear Collins, I had no idea you were so far on with your book, and heartily congratulate you on being within sight of land. It is excessively pleasant to me to get your letter, as it opens a perspective of theatrical and other lounging evenings, and also of articles in Household Words. It will not be the first time that we shall have got on well in Paris, and I hope it will not be by many a time the last. I purpose coming over early in February, as soon, in fact, as I shall have knocked out number 5 of Little D, and therefore we can return in a jovial manner together. As soon as I know my day of coming over, I will write to you again, and as the merchants, say Charlie, would add, communicate same to you. The lodging, en garçon, shall be duly looked up, and I shall of course make a point of finding it close here. There will be no difficulty in that. I will have concluded the treaty before starting for London, and will take it by the month, both because that is the cheapest way, and because desirable places don't let for shorter terms. I have been sitting to Sheffer today, conceive this, if you please, with number 5 upon my soul, 4 hours. I am so addle-headed and bored that if you were here, I should propose an instantaneous rush to the Trois Freres. Under existing circumstances, I have no consolation. I think the portrait is the most astounding thing ever beheld upon this globe. It has been shrieked over by the united family as, oh, the very image. I went down to the entresol the moment I opened it, and submitted it to the Plorn, then engaged, with a half-franc musket, in capturing a Malakoff of chairs. He looked at it very hard, and gave it as his opinion that it was Mr. Hegg. We suppose him to have confounded the colonel with Jolins. I met Madame Georges Sand the other day at a dinner got up by Madame Viardot for that great purpose. The human mind cannot conceive anyone more astonishingly opposed to all my preconceptions. If I had been shown her in a state of repose, and asked what I thought her to be, I should have said, the Queen's monthly nurse. Au reste, she has nothing of the bars bleu about her, and is very quiet and agreeable. The way in which mysterious Frenchmen call and want to embrace me suggests to anyone who knows me intimately such infamous lurking, slinking, getting behind doors, evading, lying, so much mean resort to craven flights, dastard subterfuges, and miserable poltroonery, on my part, that I merely suggest the arrival of cards like this. Handwritten cards. And I then write letters of terrific empressement, with assurances of all sorts of profound considerations, and never by any chance become visible to the naked eye. At the Porte Saint Martin they are doing the Orestes, put into French verse by Alexander Dumas, really one of the absurdest things I ever saw. The scene of the tomb, with all manner of classical females in black grouping themselves on the lid, and on the steps, and on each other, and in every conceivable aspect of obtrusive impossibility, is just like the window of one of those artists in hair who address the friends of deceased persons. Tomorrow week, a fête is coming off at the Jardin de Hiver, next door but one here, which I must certainly go to. The fête of the company of the Folies Nouvelles. The ladies of the company are to keep stalls, and are to sell to messieurs the amateurs orange water and lemonade. Paul Legrand is to promenade among the company, dressed as Pierrot. Calm, the big-faced comic singer, is to do the like, dressed as a Russian Cossack. The entertainments are to conclude with La Polka des Berts Féroces par la troupe entière des Folies Nouvelles. I wish, without invasion of the rights of British subjects or risk of war, could be seized by French troops, brought over, and made to assist. The apartment has not grown any bigger since you last had the joy of beholding me, and upon my honor and word I live in terror of asking, to dinner, lest she should not be able to get in at the dining-room door. I'm not sure, the dining-room would hold her if she could be once passed in, but I don't see my way to that. Nevertheless, we manage our own family dinners very snugly there, and have good ones, as I think you will say, every day at 5:30. I have a notion that we may knock out a series of descriptions for H.W. without much trouble. It is very difficult to get into the catacombs, but my name is so well known here that I think I may succeed. I find that the guillotine can be got set up in private, like Punch's show. What do you think of that for an article? I find myself underlining words constantly. It is not my nature. It is mere imbecility after the 4 hours sitting. All unite in kindest remembrances to you, your mother and brother. Ever cordially, Miss Mary Boyle. 49, Champs-Élysées, Paris, Jan. 28, 1856. My dear Mary, I am afraid you will think me an abandoned ruffian for not having acknowledged your more than handsome, warm-hearted letter before now. But as usual, I have been so occupied, and so glad to get up from my desk and wallow in the mud, at present about 6 feet deep here, that pleasure correspondence is just the last thing in the world I have had leisure to take to. Business correspondence with all sorts and conditions of men and women, oh my Mary, is one of the dragons I am perpetually fighting, and the more I throw it, the more it stands upon its hind legs, rampant, and throws me. Yes, on that bright cold morning when I left Peterborough, I felt that the best thing I could do was to say that word, that I would do anything in an honest way to avoid saying, at one blow, and make off. I was so sorry to leave you all. You can scarcely imagine what a chill and blank I felt on that Monday evening at Rockingham. It was so sad to me, and engendered a constraint so melancholy and peculiar, that I doubt if I were ever much more out of sorts in my life. Next morning, when it was light and sparkling out of doors, I felt more at home again. But when I came in from seeing poor dear Watson's grave, Mrs. Watson asked me to go up in the gallery, which I had last seen in the days of our merry play. We went up and walked into the very part he had made and was so fond of, and she looked out of one window and I looked out of another, and for the life of me, I could not decide in my own heart whether I should console or distress her by going and taking her hand and saying something of what was naturally in my mind. So I said nothing, and we came out again, and on the whole perhaps it was best, for I have no doubt we understood each other very well without speaking a word. Sheffield was a tremendous success and an admirable audience. They made me a present of table cutlery after the reading was over, and I came away by the mail train within 3/4 of an hour, changing my dress and getting on my wrappers partly in the fly, partly at the inn, partly on the platform. When we got among the Lincolnshire fens, it began to snow. That changed to sleet, that changed to rain. The frost was all gone as we neared London, and the mud has all come. At 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I stopped at Peterborough again and thought of you all disconsolately. The lady in the refreshment room was very hard upon me, harder even than those fair enslavers usually are. She gave me a cup of tea, as if I were a hyena, and she my cruel keeper with a strong dislike to me. I mingled my tears with it, and had a petrified bun of enormous antiquity in miserable meekness. It is clear to me that climates are gradually assimilating over a great part of the world, and that in the most miserable part of our year there is very little to choose between London and Paris, except that London is not so muddy. I have never seen dirtier or worse weather than we have had here since I returned. In desperation, I went out to the barriers last Sunday on a headlong walk, and came back with my very eyebrows smeared with mud. Georgina is usually invisible during the walking time of the day. A turned-up nose may be seen in the midst of splashes, but nothing more. I am settling to work again, and my horrible restlessness immediately assails me. It belongs to such times. As I was writing the preceding page, it suddenly came into my head that I would get up and go to Calais. I don't know why. The moment I got there, I should want to go somewhere else. But as my friend the Boot says, see Christmas number, Household Words. When you come to think what a game you've been up to ever since you was in your own cradle, and what a poor sort of a chap you were, and how it's always yesterday with you, or else tomorrow, and never today, that's where it is. My dear Mary, would you favor me with the name and address of the professor that taught you writing? For I want to improve myself. Many a hand have I seen with many characteristics of beauty in it, some loopy, some dashy, some large, some small, some sloping to the right, some sloping to the left, some not sloping at all. But what I like in your hand, Mary, is its plainness. It is like print. Them as runs may read just as well as if they stood still. I should have thought it was copper plate if I hadn't known you. They send all sorts of messages from here, and so do I, with my best regards to Begie and Pardner and the blessed Babbies. When shall we meet again, I wonder, and go somewhere? Ah. Believe me ever, my dear Mary. Yours truly and affectionately. Joe. That doesn't look plain. Joe. Miss Hogarth. Household Words, Friday, Feb. 8th, 1856. My dear Georgie, I must write this at railroad speed, for I have been at it all day and have numbers of letters to cram into the next half hour. I began the morning in the city for the theatrical fund, went on to Shepherd's Bush, came back to leave cards for Mr. Baring and Mr. Bates, ran across Piccadilly to Stratton Street, stayed there an hour, and shot off here. I have been in 4 cabs today at a cost of 13 shillings. Am going to dine with Mark and Webster at 4:30 and finish the evening at the Adelphi. The dinner was very successful. Charlie was in great force, and floored Peter Cunningham and the audit office on a question about some bill transactions with bearings. The other guests were B and E, Shirley Brooks, Forster, and that's all. The dinner admirable. I never had a better. All the wine I sent down from Tavistock House. Anne waited and looked well and happy, very much brighter altogether. It gave me great pleasure to see her so improved. Just before dinner, I got all the letters from home. They could not have arrived more opportunely. The godfather's present looks charming now it is engraved, and John is just now going off to take it to Mrs. Yates. Tomorrow Wills and I are going to Gad's Hill. It will occupy the whole day and will just leave me time to get home to dress for dinner. And that's all that I have to say, except that the first number of Little Dorrit has gone to 40,000, and the other one fast following. My best love to Catherine, and to Mamie and Katie, and Walter and Harry, and the noble Plorn. I am grieved to hear about his black eye, and fear that I shall find it in the green and purple state on my return. Ever affectionately, the humble petition of Charles Dickens, a distressed foreigner. Jonathan, that your petitioner has not been able to write one word today, or to fashion forth the dimmest shade of the faintest ghost of an idea. That your petitioner is therefore desirous of being taken out, and is not at all particular where. That your petitioner, being imbecile, says no more, but will ever, etc., whatever that may be. Paris, March 3rd, 1856. Mr. Douglas Gerald. Household Words, Office, March 6th, 1856. My dear Gerald, Buckstone has been with me today in a state of demi-semi-distraction, by reason of Macready's dreading his asthma so much as to excuse himself, of necessity, I know, from taking the chair for the fund on the occasion of their next dinner. I have promised to back Buckstone's entreaty to you to take it, and although I know that you have an objection which you once communicated to me, I still hold, as I did then, that it is a reason for and not against. Pray reconsider the point. Your position in connection with dramatic literature has always suggested to me that there would be a great fitness and grace in your appearing in this post. I am convinced that the public would regard it in that light, and I particularly ask you to reflect that we never can do battle with the Lords if we will not bestow ourselves to go into places which they have long monopolized. Now pray discuss this matter with yourself once more. If you can come to a favorable conclusion, I shall be really delighted, and will of course come from Paris to be by you. If you cannot come to a favorable conclusion, I shall be really sorry, though I of course most readily defer to your right to regard such a matter from your own point of view. Ever faithfully yours, Miss Hogarth. Household Words, Office, Tuesday, March 11th, 1856. My dear Georgie, I have been in bed half the day with my cold, which is excessively violent, consequently have to write in a great hurry to save the post. Tell Catherine that I have the most prodigious, overwhelming, crushing, astounding, blinding, deafening, pulverizing, scarifying secret, of which Forster is the hero, imaginable by the whole efforts of the whole British population. It is a thing of that kind that, after I knew it, from himself, this morning, I lay down flat, as if an engine and tender had fallen upon me. Love to Catherine, not a word of Forster before anyone else, and to Mamie, Katie, Harry, and the noble Plorn. Tell Collins with my kind regards that Forster has just pronounced to me that Collins is a decidedly clever fellow. I hope he is a better fellow in health too. Ever affectionately, Miss Hogarth. Household Words, Friday, March 14th, 1856. My dear Georgie, I am amazed to hear of the snow. I don't know why, but it excited John this morning beyond measure, though we have had the same east wind here, and the cold and my cold have both been intense. Yesterday evening Webster, Mark, Stanley, and I went to the Olympic, where the Wiggins ranged us in a row in a gorgeous and immense private box, and where we saw still waters run deep. I laughed in a conspicuous manner to that extent at Emery, when he received the dinner company, that the people were more amused by me than by the piece. I don't think I ever saw anything meant to be funny that struck me as so extraordinarily droll. I couldn't get over it at all. After the piece we went round, by Wiggins' invitation, to drink with him. It being positively impossible to get Stanny off the stage, we stood in the wings during the burlesque. Mrs. Wiggins seemed really glad to see her old manager, and the company overwhelmed him with embraces. They had nearly all been at the meeting in the morning. I have seen Charlie only twice since I came to London, having regularly been in bed until midday. To my amazement, my eye fell upon him at the Adelphi yesterday. This day I have paid the purchase money for Gad's Hill Place. After drawing the cheque, I turned round to give it to Will's £1,790 and said, "Now isn't it an extraordinary thing? Look at the day, Friday. I have been nearly drawing it half a dozen times when the lawyers have not been ready, and here it comes round upon a Friday as a matter of course. Kiss the noble Plorn a dozen times for me, and tell him I drank his health yesterday and wished him many happy returns of the day. Also that I hope he will not have broken all his toys before I come back. Ever affectionately, Mr. W. C. Macready. 49, Champs-Élysées, Paris, Saturday, March 22nd, 1856. My dear Macready, I want you being quite well again, as I trust you are, and resolute to come to Paris, so to arrange your order of march as to let me know beforehand when you will come, and how long you will stay. We owe Scribe and his wife a dinner, and I should like to pay the debt when you are with us. Ari Scheffer, too, would be delighted to see you again. If I could arrange for a certain day, I would secure them. We cannot afford, you and I mean, to keep much company, because we shall have to look in at a theatre or so, I dare say. It would suit my work best if I could keep myself clear until Monday, the 7th of April. But in case that day should be too late for the beginning of your brief visit, with a deference to any other engagements you have in contemplation, then fix an earlier one, and I will make little Dorrit curtsy to it. My recent visit to London and my having only just now come back have thrown me a little behindhand, but I hope to come up with a wet sail in a few days. You should have seen the ruins of Covent Garden Theatre. I went in the moment I got to London, 4 days after the fire. Although the audience part and the stage were so tremendously burnt out that there was not a piece of wood half the size of a lucifer match for the eye to rest on, though nothing whatever remained but bricks and smelted iron lying on a great black desert, the theatre still looked so wonderfully like its old self grown gigantic that I never saw so strange a sight. The wall dividing the front from the stage still remained, and the iron pass doors stood ajar in an impassable and inaccessible frame. The arches that supported the stage were there, and the arches that supported the pit, and in the center of the latter lay something like a titanic grapevine that a hurricane had pulled up by the roots, twisted, and flung down there. This was the great chandelier. Jai had kept the men's wardrobe at the top of the house over the great entrance staircase. When the roof fell in, it came down bodily, and all that part of the ruins was like an old Babylonic pavement, bright rays tessellating the black ground, sometimes in pieces so large that I could make out the clothes in the travetter. I should run on for a couple of hours if I had to describe the spectacle as I saw it, wherefore I will immediately muzzle myself. All here unite in kindest loves to dear Miss Macready, to Katie, Lily, Benvenuta, my godson, and the noble Johnny. We are charmed to hear such happy accounts of Willie and Ned, and send our loving remembrance to them in the next letters. All Parisian novelties you shall see and hear for yourself. Ever, my dearest Macready, your affectionate friend. P.S. Mr. F.'s aunt sends her defiant respects. Mr. W. C. Macready. 49, Avenue des Champs-Élysées, Paris. Thursday night, March 27th, 1856, after post time. My dearest Macready, if I had had any idea of your coming, see how naturally I use the word when I am 300 miles off, to London so soon, I would never have written one word about the jump over next week. I am vexed that I did so, but as I did, I will not now propose a change in the arrangements, as I know how methodical you tremendously old fellows are. That's your secret, I suspect. That's the way in which the blood of the Mirabelles mounts in your aged veins, even at your time of life. How charmed I shall be to see you, and we all shall be, I will not attempt to say. On that expected Sunday, you will lunch at Amiens but not dine, because we shall wait dinner for you, and you will merely have to tell that driver in the glazed hat to come straight here. When the Whites left, I added their little apartment to this little apartment. Consequently, you shall have a snug bedroom, is it not, waiting expressly for you, overlooking the Champs-Élysées. As to the armchair in my heart, no man on earth, but good God, you know all about it. You will find us in the queerest of little rooms all alone, except that the son of Collins the painter, who writes a good deal in household words, dines with us every day. Scheffer and Scribe shall be admitted for one evening, because they know how to appreciate you. The Emperor we will not ask unless you expressly wish it. It makes a fuss. If you have no appointed hotel at Boulogne, go to the Hôtel des Bains, there demand Marguerite, and tell her that I commended you to her special care. It is the best house within my experience in France, Marguerite the best housekeeper in the world. I shall charge at Little Dorrit tomorrow with new spirits. The sight of you is good for my boyish eyes, and the thought of you for my dawning mind. Give the enclosed lines a welcome, then send them on to Sherborne. Ever yours, most affectionately and truly, Mr. W. H. Wills. 49, Champs-Élysées, Paris, Sunday, Apeth, 1856. My dear Wills, Christmas. Collins and I have a mighty original notion, mine in the beginning, for another play at Tavistock House. I propose opening on 12th night the theatrical season of that great establishment. But now a tremendous question is, Mrs. Wills game to do a Scotch housekeeper in a supposed country house with Mary, Katie, Georgina, etc. If she can screw her courage up to saying yes, that country house opens the piece in a singular way, and that Scotch housekeeper's part shall flow from the present pen. If she says no, but she won't, no Scotch housekeeper can be. The Tavistock House season of 4 nights pauses for a reply. Scotch song, new and original, of Scotch housekeeper would pervade the piece. You had better pause for breath. Ever faithfully, Poole. I have paid him his money. Here is the proof of life. If you will get me the receipt to sign, the money can go to my account at Couts's. Mrs. Charles Dickens. Tavistock House, Monday, May 5th, 1856. My dear Catherine, I did nothing at Dover, except for household words, and have not begun Little Dorrit, No. 8 yet, but I took 20-mile walks in the fresh air, and perhaps in the long run did better than if I had been at work. The report concerning Scheffer's portrait I had from Ward. It is in the best place in the largest room, but I find the general impression of the artists exactly mine. They almost all say that it wants something, that nobody could mistake whom it was meant for, but that it has something disappointing in it, etc., etc. Stanfield likes it better than any of the other painters, I think. His own picture is magnificent, and Frith in A Little Child's Birthday Party is quite delightful. There are many interesting pictures. When you see Scheffer, tell him from me that Eastlake, in his speech at the dinner, referred to the portrait as a contribution from a distinguished man of genius in France, worthy of himself and of his subject. I did the maddest thing last night, and am deeply penitent this morning. We stayed at Webster's till any hour, and they wanted me, at last, to make punch, which couldn't be done when the jug was brought, because, to Webster's burning indignation, there was only one lemon in the house. Hereupon I then and there besought the establishment in general to come and drink punch on Thursday night, after the play, on which occasion it will become necessary to furnish fully the table with some cold viands from Fortnum and Mason's. Mark has looked in since I began this note to suggest that the great festival may come off at Household Words instead. I am inclined to think it a good idea, and that I shall transfer the locality to that business establishment, but I am at present distracted with doubts and torn by remorse. The schoolroom and dining room I have brought into habitable condition and comfortable appearance. Charlie and I breakfast at 8:30 and meet again at dinner when he does not dine in the city or has no engagement. He looks very well. The audiences at Guy's are described to me as absolute marvels of coldness. No signs of emotion can be hammered out of them. Panizzi sat next me at the academy dinner and took it very ill that I disparaged. The amateurs here are getting up another pantomime, but quarrel so violently among themselves that I doubt it's ever getting on the stage. Webster expounded his scheme for rebuilding the Adelphi to Stanfield and myself last night, and I felt bound to tell him that I thought it wrong from beginning to end. This is all the theatrical news I know. I write by this post to Georgie. Love to Mamie, Katie, Harry, and the noble Plorn. I should be glad to see him here. Ever affectionately, Miss Hogarth. Tavistock House, Monday, May 5th, 1856. My dear Georgie, you will not be much surprised to hear that I have done nothing yet, except for H.W., and have only just settled down into a corner of the schoolroom. The extent to which John and I wallowed in dust for 4 hours yesterday morning, getting things neat and comfortable about us, you may faintly imagine. At 4 in the afternoon came Stanfield, to whom I no sooner described the notion of the new play than he immediately upset all my new arrangements by making a proscenium of the chairs and planning the scenery with walking sticks. One of the least things he did was getting on the top of the long table and hanging over the bar in the middle window where that top sash opens, as if he had got a hinge in the middle of his body. He is immensely excited on the subject. Mark had a farce ready for the managerial perusal, but it won't do. I went to the Dover Theatre on Friday night, which was a miserable spectacle. The pit is boarded over, and it is a drinking and smoking place. It was for the benefit of Mrs., and the town had been very extensively placarded with "Don't Forget Friday." I made out 4 and 9pence, I am serious, in the house when I went in. We may have warmed up in the course of the evening to 12 shillings. A Jew played the grand piano. Mrs. sang no end of songs, with not a bad voice, poor creature. Mr. sang comic songs fearfully, and danced clog hornpipes capitally, and a miserable woman, shivering in a shawl and bonnet, sat in the side boxes all the evening, nursing master, aged 7 months. It was a most forlorn business, and I should have contributed a sovereign to the treasury if I had known how. I walked to Deal and back that day, and on the previous day walked over the downs towards Canterbury in a gale of wind. It was better than still weather after all, being wonderfully fresh and free. If the Plorn were sitting at this schoolroom window in the corner, he would see more cats in an hour than he ever saw in his life. I never saw so many, I think, as I have seen since yesterday morning. There is a painful picture of a great deal of merit, Egg has bought it, in the exhibition, painted by the man who did those little interiors of Forster's. It is called The Death of Chatterton. The dead figure is a good deal like Arthur Stone, and I was touched on Saturday to see that tender old file standing before it, crying under his spectacles at the idea of seeing his son dead. It was a very tender manifestation of his gentle old heart. This sums up my news, which is no news at all. Kiss the Plorn for me, and expound to him that I am always looking forward to meeting him again, among the birds and flowers in the garden on the side of the hill at Boulogne. Ever affectionately, the Duke of Devonshire. Tavistock House, Sunday, June 1st, 1856. My dear Duke of Devonshire, allow me to thank you with all my heart for your kind remembrance of me on Thursday night. My house was already engaged to Miss Couts's, and I to the top of St. Paul's, where the sight was most wonderful. But seeing that your cards gave me leave to present some person not named, I conferred them on my excellent friend Dr. Eliotson, whom I found with some fireworkless little boys in a desolate condition, and raised to the 7th heaven of happiness. You are so fond of making people happy that I am sure you approve. Always your faithful and much obliged, Mr. W. Wilkie Collins. Tavistock House, June 6th, 1856. My dear Collins, I have never seen anything about myself in print which has much correctness in it, any biographical account of myself, I mean. I do not supply such particulars when I am asked for them by editors and compilers, simply because I am asked for them every day. If you want to prime Forbes, you may tell him without fear of anything wrong that I was born at Portsmouth on the 7th of February, 1812, that my father was in the Navy Pay Office, that I was taken by him to Chatham when I was very young and lived and was educated there till I was 12 or 13, I suppose, that I was then put to a school near London. As at other places, I distinguished myself like a brick, that I was put in the office of a solicitor, a friend of my father's, and didn't much like it, and after a couple of years, as well as I can remember, applied myself with a celestial or diabolical energy to the study of such things as would qualify me to be a first-rate parliamentary reporter. At that time, calling pursued by many clever men who were young at the bar, that I made my debut in the gallery, at about 18, I suppose, engaged on a voluminous publication no longer in existence, called The Mirror of Parliament, that when the Morning Chronicle was purchased by Sir John Easthorpe and acquired a large circulation, I was engaged there, and that I remained there, until I had begun to publish Pickwick, when I found myself in a condition to relinquish that part of my labors, that I left the reputation behind me of being the best and most rapid reporter ever known, and that I could do anything in that way under any sort of circumstances, and often did. I dare say I am at this present writing the best shorthand writer in the world. That I began, without any interest or introduction of any kind, to write fugitive pieces for the old monthly magazine, when I was in the gallery for the Mirror of Parliament, that my faculty for descriptive writing was seized upon the moment I joined the Morning Chronicle, and that I was liberally paid there and handsomely acknowledged and wrote the greater part of the short descriptive sketches by bars in that paper, that I had been a writer when I was a mere baby and always an actor from the same age, that I married the daughter of a writer to the Signet in Edinburgh, who was the great friend and assistant of Scott, and who first made Lockhart known to him. And that here I am. Finally, if you want any dates of publication of books, tell Wills and he'll get them for you. This is the first time I ever set down even these particulars, and glancing them over, I feel like a wild beast in a caravan describing himself in the keeper's absence. Ever faithfully. P.S. I made a speech last night at the London Tavern, at the end of which all the company sat holding their napkins to their eyes with one hand and putting the other into their pockets. 100 people or so contributed £900 then and there. Mr. Mark Lemon. Villa des Moulineaux, Boulogne. Sunday, June 15th, 1856. My dear old boy, this place is beautiful, a burst of roses. Your friend Beaucourt, who will not put on his hat, has thinned the trees and greatly improved the garden. Upon my life, I believe there are at least 20 distinct smoking spots expressly made in it. And as soon as you can see your day in next month for coming over with Stanley and Webster, will you let them both know? I should not be very much surprised if I were to come over and fetch you when I know what your day is. Indeed, I don't see how you could get across properly without me. There is a fete here tonight in honor of the imperial baptism, and there will be another tomorrow. The Plorn has put on 2 bits of ribbon, one pink and one blue, which he calls companies, to celebrate the occasion. The fact that the receipts of the fetes are to be given to the sufferers by the late floods reminds me that you will find at the passport office a tin box, condescendingly and considerately labeled in English, for the overflowings, which the chief officer clearly believes to mean, for the sufferers from the inundations. I observe more mingles in the laundresses' shops, and one inscription which looks like the name of a duet or chorus in a playbill. Here they mingle. Will you congratulate Mrs. Lemon, with our loves, on her gallant victory over the recreant cabman? Walter has turned up, rather brilliant on the whole, and that, with shoals of remembrances and messages which I don't deliver, is all my present intelligence. Ever affectionately, Mr. Mark Lemon. H.W. Office, July 2nd, 1856. My dear Mark, I am concerned to hear that you are ill, that you sit down before fires and shiver, and that you have stated times for doing so, like the demons in the melodramas, and that you mean to take a week to get well in. Make haste about it, like a dear fellow, and keep up your spirits, because I have made a bargain with Stanley and Webster that they shall come to Boulogne tomorrow week, Thursday the 10th, and stay a week. And you know how much pleasure we shall all miss if you are not among us, at least for some part of the time. If you find any unusually light appearance in the air at Brighton, it is a distant refraction, I have no doubt, of the gorgeous and shining surface of Tavistock House, now transcendently painted. The theatre partition is put up, and is a work of such terrific solidity that I suppose it will be dug up, ages hence, from the ruins of London, by that Australian of Macaulay's who is to be impressed by its ashes. I have wandered through the spectral halls of the Tavistock mansion 2 nights, with feelings of the profoundest depression. I have breakfasted there, like a criminal in Pentonville, only not so well. It is more like Westminster Abbey by midnight than the lowest-spirited man, say you at present for example, can well imagine. There has been a wonderful robbery at Folkestone by the new manager of the pavilion who succeeded Giovannini. He had in keeping £16,000 of a foreigner's and bolted with it, as he supposed, but in reality with only £1,400 of it. The Frenchman had previously bolted with the whole, which was the property of his mother. With him to England, the Frenchman brought a lady, who was, all the time and at the same time, endeavouring to steal all the money from him and bolt with it herself. The details are amazing, and all the money, a few pounds excepted, has been got back. They will be full of sympathy and talk about you when I get home, and I shall tell them that I send their loves beforehand. They are all enclosed. The moment you feel hearty, just write me that word by post. I shall be so delighted to receive it. Ever, my dear boy, your affectionate friend, Mr. Walter Savage Landor. Villa des Moulineaux, Boulogne. Saturday evening, July 5th, 1856. My dear Landor, I write to you so often in my books, and my writing of letters is usually so confined to the numbers that I must write, and in which I have no kind of satisfaction, that I am afraid to think how long it is since we exchanged a direct letter. But talking to your namesake this very day at dinner, it suddenly entered my head that I would come into my room here as soon as dinner should be over, and write, My dear Landor, how are you? For the pleasure of having the answer under your own hand, that you do write, and that pretty often, I know beforehand. Else why do I read the Examiner? We were in Paris from October to May, I perpetually flying between that city and London, and there we found out, by a blessed accident, that your godson was horribly deaf. I immediately consulted the principal physician of the deaf and dumb institution there, one of the best aurists in Europe, and he kept the boy for 3 months, and took unheard-of pains with him. He is now quite recovered, has done extremely well at school, has brought home a prize in triumph, and will be eligible to go up for his India examination soon after next Easter. Having a direct appointment, he will probably be sent out soon after he has passed, and so will fall into that strange life up the country before he well knows he is alive, which indeed seems to be rather an advanced stage of knowledge. And there in Paris, at the same time, I found Marguerite Power and little Nellie living with their mother and a pretty sister in a very small, neat apartment and working, as Marguerite told me, hard for a living. All that I saw of them filled me with respect and revived the tenderest remembrances of Gore House. They are coming to pass 2 or 3 weeks here for a country rest next month. We had many long talks concerning Gore House and all its bright associations, and I can honestly report that they hold no one in more gentle and affectionate remembrance than you. Marguerite is still handsome, though she had the smallpox 2 or 3 years ago and bears the traces of it here and there by daylight. Poor little Nellie, the quicker and more observant of the two, shows some little tokens of a broken-off marriage in a face too careworn for her years, but is a very winning and sensible creature. We are expecting Mary Boyle too, shortly. I have just been propounding to Forster if it is not a wonderful testimony to the homely force of truth that one of the most popular books on earth has nothing in it to make anyone laugh or cry. Yet I think, with some confidence, that you never did either over any passage in Robinson Crusoe. In particular, I took Friday's death as one of the least tender and, in the true sense, least sentimental things ever written. It is a book I read very much, and the wonder of its prodigious effect on me and everyone, and the admiration thereof, grows on me the more I observe this curious fact. Kate and Georgina send you their kindest loves and smile approvingly on me from the next room as I bend over my desk. My dear Landor, you see many, I dare say, and hear from many, I have no doubt, who love you heartily, but we silent people in the distance never forget you. Do not forget us, and let us exchange affection at least. Ever your admirer and friend, the Duke of Devonshire. Villa des Moulineaux, near Boulogne. Saturday night, July 5th, 1856. My dear Duke of Devonshire, from this place where I am writing my way through the summer, in the midst of rosy gardens and sea airs, I cannot forbear writing to tell you with what uncommon pleasure I received your interesting letter, and how sensible I always am of your kindness and generosity. You were always in the mind of my household during your illness, and to have so beautiful and fresh and manly an assurance of your recovery from it, under your own hand, is a privilege and delight that I will say no more of. I am so glad you like Flora. It came into my head one day that we have all had our Floras, and that it was a half-serious, half-ridiculous truth which had never been told. It is a wonderful gratification to me to find that everybody knows her. Indeed, some people seem to think I have done them a personal injury, and that their individual Floras, God knows where they are or who, are each and all little Dorrits. We were all grievously disappointed that you were ill when we played Mr. Collins's Lighthouse at my house. If you had been well, I should have waited upon you with my humble petition that you would come and see it, and if you had come I think you would have cried, which would have charmed me. I hope to produce another play at home next Christmas, and if I can only persuade you to see it from a special armchair, and can only make you wretched, my satisfaction will be intense. May I tell you, to beguile a moment, of a little tag, or end of a piece, I saw in Paris this last winter, which struck me as the prettiest I had ever met with. The piece was not a new one, but a revival at the vaudeville, Les Mémoires du Diable. Admirably constructed, very interesting, and extremely well played. The plot is that a certain M. Robin has come into possession of the papers of a deceased lawyer, and finds some relating to the wrongful withholding of an estate from a certain baroness, and to certain other frauds, involving even the denial of the marriage to the deceased baron, and the tarnishing of his good name, which are so very wicked that he binds them up in a book, and labels them Mémoires du Diable. Armed with this knowledge, he goes down to the desolate old chateau in the country, part of the wrested-away estate, from which the baroness and her daughter are going to be ejected. He informs the mother that he can right her and restore the property, but must have, as his reward, her daughter's hand in marriage. She replies, I cannot promise my daughter to a man of whom I know nothing. The gain would be an unspeakable happiness, but I resolutely decline the bargain. The daughter, however, has observed all, and she comes forward and says, do what you have promised my mother you can do, and I am yours. Then the piece goes on to its development in an admirable way through the unmasking of all the hypocrites. Now M. Robin, partly through his knowledge of the secret ways of the old chateau, derived from the lawyer's papers, and partly through his going to a masquerade as the devil, the better to explode what he knows on the hypocrites, is supposed by the servants at the chateau really to be the devil. At the opening of the last act he suddenly appears there before the young lady, and she screams, but recovering and laughing says, you are not really the— oh dear no, he replies, have no connection with him, but these people down here are so frightened and absurd. See this little toy on the table, I open it, here's a little bell. They have a notion that whenever this bell rings I shall appear. Very ignorant, is it not? Very indeed, says she. Well, says M. Robin, if you should want me very much to appear, try the bell if only for a jest. Will you promise? Yes, she promises, and the play goes on. At last he has righted the baroness completely, and has only to hand her the last document which proves her marriage and restores her good name. Then he says, Madame, in the progress of these endeavors, I have learnt the happiness of doing good for its own sake. I made a necessary bargain with you, I release you from it. I have done what I undertook to do. I wish you and your amiable daughter all happiness. Adieu, I take my leave. Bows himself out. People on the stage astonished. Audience astonished, incensed. The daughter is going to cry when she looks at the box on the table, remembers the bell, runs to it and rings it, and he rushes back and takes her to his heart, upon which we all cry with pleasure and then laugh heartily. This looks dreadfully long, and perhaps you know it already. If so, I will endeavor to make amends with Flora in future numbers. Mrs. Dickens and her sister beg to present their remembrances to your Grace and their congratulations on your recovery. I saw Paxton now and then when you were ill, and always received from him most encouraging accounts. I don't know how heavy he is going to be, I mean in the scale, but I begin to think Daniel Lambert must have been in his family. Ever your Grace's faithful and obliged, Mr. W. C. Macready. Villa des Moulineaux, Boulogne. Tuesday, July 8, 1856. My dearest Macready, I perfectly agree with you in your appreciation of Katie's poem, and shall be truly delighted to publish it in Household Words. It shall go into the very next number we make up. We are a little in advance, to enable Wills to get a holiday, but as I remember, the next number made up will be published in 3 weeks. We are pained indeed to read your reference to my poor boy. God keep him and his father. I trust he is not conscious of much suffering himself. If that be so, it is, in the midst of the distress, a great comfort. Little Dorrit keeps me pretty busy, as you may suppose. The beginning of number 10, the first line, now lies upon my desk. It would not be easy to increase upon the pains I take with her anyhow. We are expecting Stanfield on Thursday, and Peter Cunningham and his wife on Monday. I would we were expecting you. This is as pretty and odd a little French country house as could be found anywhere, and the gardens are most beautiful. In Household Words, next week pray read The Diary of Anne Rodway in 2 not long parts. It is by Collins, and I think possesses great merit and real pathos. Being in town the other day, I saw Jai by accident and told him, when he praised to me, that she was a very bad actress. Well, said he, you may say anything, but if anybody else had told me that I should have stared. Nevertheless, I derived an impression from his manner that she had not been a profitable speculation in respect of money. That very same day Stanfield and I dined alone together at the Garrick and drank your health. We had had a ride by the river before dinner. Of course he would go and look at boats, and had been talking of you. It was this day week, by the by. I know of nothing of public interest that is new in France, except that I am changing my mustache into a beard. We all send our most tender loves to dearest Miss Macready and all the house. The hammy boy is particularly anxious to have his love sent to Miss Creedy. Ever, my dearest Macready. Most affectionately yours, Mr. W. Wilkie Collins. Villa des Moulineaux, Boulogne, Sunday, July 13, 1856. My dear Collins, we are all sorry that you are not coming until the middle of next month, but we hope that you will then be able to remain, so that we may all come back together about the 10th of October. I think, recreation allowed, etc., that the play will take that time to write. The ladies of the Dram, Pers, are frightfully anxious to get it under way, and to see you locked up in the pavilion, apropos of which noble edifice I have omitted to mention that it is made a more secluded retreat than it used to be, and is greatly improved by the position of the door being changed. It is as snug and as pleasant as possible, and the genius of order has made a few little improvements about the house, at the rate of about 10d. apiece, which the genius of disorder will, it is hoped, appreciate. I think I must come over for a small spree, and to fetch you. Suppose I were to come on the 9th or 10th of August to stay 3 or 4 days in town, would that do for you? Let me know at the end of this month. I cannot tell you what a high opinion I have of Anne Rodway. I took extracts out of the title because it conveyed to the many-headed an idea of incompleteness, of something unfinished, and is likely to stall some readers off. I read the first part at the office with strong admiration, and read the second on the railway coming back here, being in town just after you had started on your cruise. My behavior before my fellow passengers was weak in the extreme, for I cried as much as you could possibly desire. Apart from the genuine force and beauty of the little narrative, and the admirable personation of the girl's identity and point of view, it is done with an amount of honest pains and devotion to the work which few men have better reason to appreciate than I, and which no man can have a more profound respect for. I think it excellent, feel a personal pride and pleasure in it, which is a delightful sensation, and know no one else who could have done it. Of myself I have only to report that I have been hard at it with little Dorrit, and am now doing number 10. This last week I sketched out the notion, characters, and progress of the farce, and sent it off to Mark, who has been ill of an ague. It ought to be very funny. The cat business is too ludicrous to be treated of in so small a sheet of paper, so I must describe it viva voce when I come to town. French has been so insufferably conceited since he shot tigerish cat no. 1 intent on the noble Dick, with green eyes 3 inches in advance of her head, that I am afraid I shall have to part with him. All the boys likewise, in new clothes and ready for church, are at this instant prone on their stomachs behind bushes, whooshing and crying, after tigerish cat number 2, French, here she comes, there she goes, etc. I dare not put my head out of window for fear of being shot. It is as like a coup d'etat as possible, and tradesmen coming up the avenue cry plaintively, Ni tires pas, Monsieur Flinch, c'est moi Boulanger, ni tires pas mon ami. Likewise, I shall have to recount to you the secret history of a robbery at the pavilion at Folkestone, which you will have to write. Tell Piggott, when you see him, that we shall all be much pleased if he will come at his own convenience while you are here, and stay a few days with us. I shall have more than one notion of future work to suggest to you while we are beguiling the dreariness of an Arctic winter in these parts. May they prosper. Kind regards from all to the dramatic poet of the establishment, and to the D-piece mother and brother. Ever yours. P.S. If the Flying Dutchman should be done again, pray do go and see it. Webster expressed his opinion to me that it was a neat piece. I implore you to go and see a neat piece. Mr. W. H. Wills. Boulogne, Thursday, August 7th, 1856. My dear Wills, I do not feel disposed to record those 2 Chancery cases. Firstly, because I would rather have no part in engendering in the mind of any human creature a hopeful confidence in that den of iniquity. And secondly, because it seems to me that the real philosophy of the facts is altogether missed in the narrative. The wrong which chanced to be set right in these 2 cases was done, as all such wrong is, mainly because these wicked courts of equity, with all their means of evasion and postponement, give scoundrels confidence in cheating. If justice were cheap, sure, and speedy, few such things could be. It is because it has become, through the vile dealing of those courts, and the vermin they have called into existence, a positive precept of experience that a man had better endure a great wrong than go, or suffer himself to be taken into Chancery with the dream of setting it right. It is because of this that such nefarious speculations are made. Therefore I see nothing at all to the credit of Chancery in these cases, but everything to its discredit. And as to owing it to Chancery to bear testimony to its having rendered justice in 2 such plain matters, I have no debt of the kind upon my conscience. In haste, ever faithfully, Mr. W. C. Macready. Boulogne, Friday, August 8th, 1856. My dearest Macready, I like the second little poem very much indeed, and think, as you do, that it is a great advance upon the first. Please to note that I make it a rule to pay for everything that is inserted in household words, holding it to be a part of my trust to make my fellow proprietors understand that they have no right to unrequited labor. Therefore, when Wills, who has been ill and is gone for a holiday, does his invariable spiriting gently, don't make Katie's case different from Adelaide Proctor's. I am afraid there is no possibility of my reading Dorsetshire wards. I have made many conditional promises thus. I am very much occupied, but if I read at all, I will read for your institution in such an order on my list. Edinburgh, which is no. 1 I have been obliged to put as far off as next Christmas 12-month. Bristol stands next. The working men at Preston come next. And so, if I were to go out of the record and read for your people, I should bring such a house about my ears as would shake little Dorrit out of my head. Being in town last Saturday, I went to see Robson in a burlesque of Medea. It is an odd but perfectly true testimony to the extraordinary power of his performance, which is of a very remarkable kind indeed, that it points the badness of acting in a most singular manner, by bringing out what she might do and does not. The scene with Jason is perfectly terrific, and the manner in which the comic rage and jealousy does not pitch itself over the floor at the stalls is in striking contrast to the manner in which the tragic rage and jealousy does. He has a frantic song and dagger dance, about 10 minutes long altogether, which has more passion in it than could express in 50 years. We all unite in kindest love to Miss Macready and all your dear ones, not forgetting my godson, to whom I send his godfather's particular love twice over. The hammy boy is so brown that you would scarcely know him. Ever, my dear Macready, affectionately yours, Mr. W. H. Wills. Tavistock House, Sunday morning, Sept. 28, 1856. My dear Wills, I suddenly remember this morning that in Mr. Curtis's article, Health and Education, I left a line which must come out. It is in effect that the want of healthy training leaves girls in a fit state to be the subjects of mesmerism. I would not on any condition hurt Eliottson's feelings, as I should deeply, by leaving that depreciatory kind of reference in any page of H.W. He has suffered quite enough without a stab from a friend. So pray, whatever the inconvenience may be in what Bradbury calls the friars, take that passage out. By some extraordinary accident, after observing it, I forgot to do it. Ever faithfully, Miss Dickens. Tavistock House, Saturday, Oct. 4th, 1856. My dear Mamie, the preparations for the play are already beginning, and it is christened, this is a great dramatic secret, which I suppose you know already, The Frozen Deep. Tell Katie, with my best love, that if she failed to come back 6 times as red, hungry, and strong as she was when she went away, I shall give her part to somebody else. We shall all be very glad to see you both back again. When I say we, I include the birds, who send their respectful duty, and the plawn. Kind regards to all at Brighton. Ever, my dear Mamie, your affectionate father. The Hun, Mrs. Watson. Tavistock House, Tuesday, Oct. 7th, 1856. My dear Mrs. Watson, I did write it for you, and I hoped in writing it that you would think so. All those remembrances are fresh in my mind, as they often are, and gave me an extraordinary interest in recalling the past. I should have been grievously disappointed if you had not been pleased, for I took aim at you with a most determined intention. Let me congratulate you most heartily on your handsome Eddie having passed his examination with such credit. I am sure there is a spirit shining out of his eyes, which will do well in that manly and generous pursuit. You will naturally feel his departure very much, and so will he, but I have always observed within my experience that the men who have left home young have, many long years afterwards, had the tenderest love for it and for all associated with it. That's a pleasant thing to think of, as one of the wise and benevolent adjustments in these lives of ours. I have been so hard at work, and shall be for the next 8 or 9 months, that sometimes I fancy I have a digestion, or a head, or nerves, or some odd encumbrance of that kind, to which I am altogether unaccustomed, and am obliged to rush at some other object for relief. At present the house is in a state of tremendous excitement, on account of Mr. Collins having nearly finished the new play we are to act at Christmas, which is very interesting and extremely clever. I hope this time you will come and see it. We purpose producing it on Charlie's birthday, 12th night, but we shall probably play 4 nights altogether. The Lighthouse, on the last occasion, so that if you could come for the 2 last nights, you would see both the pieces. I am going to try and do better than ever, and already the schoolroom is in the hands of carpenters, men from underground habitations in theaters, who look as if they lived entirely upon smoke and gas, meet me at unheard-of hours. Mr. Stanfield is perpetually measuring the boards with a chalked piece of string and an umbrella, and all the elder children are wildly punctual and businesslike to attract managerial commendation. If you don't come, I shall do something antagonistic, try to unwrite number 11, I think. I should particularly like you to see a new and serious piece so done, because I don't think you know, without seeing, how good it is. None of the children suffered, thank God, from the Boulogne risk. The 3 little boys have gone back to school there and are all well. Katie came away ill, but it turned out that she had the whooping cough for the 2nd time. She has been to Brighton and comes home today. I hear great accounts of her and hope to find her quite well when she arrives presently. I'm afraid Mary Boyle has been praising the Boulogne life too highly. Not that I deny, however, our having passed some very pleasant days together and our having had great pleasure in her visit. You will object to me dreadfully, I know, with a beard, though not a great one. But if you come and see the play, you will find it necessary there, and will perhaps be more tolerant of the fearful object afterwards. I need not tell you how delighted we should be to see George if you would come together. Pray tell him so, with my kind regards. I like the notion of Wentworth and his philosophy of all things. I remember a philosophical gravity upon him, a state of suspended opinion as to myself. It struck me, when we last met, in which I thought there was a great deal of oddity and character. Charlie is doing very well at Bearings, and attracting praise and reward to himself. Within this fortnight there turned up from the West Indies, where he is now a Chief Justice, an old friend of mine of my own age, who lived with me in lodgings in the Adelphi when I was just Charlie's age. He had a great affection for me at that time, and always supposed I was to do some sort of wonders. It was a very pleasant meeting indeed, and he seemed to think it so odd that I shouldn't be Charlie. This is every atom of no news that will come out of my head, and I firmly believe it is all I have in it, except that a cobbler at Boulogne, who had the nicest of little dogs, that always sat in his sunny window watching him at work, asked me if I would bring the dog home, as he couldn't afford to pay the tax for him. The cobbler and the dog being both my particular friends, I complied. The cobbler parted with the dog heartbroken. When the dog got home here, my man, like an idiot as he is, tied him up and then untied him. The moment the gate was open, the dog, on the very day after his arrival, ran out. Next day Georgie and I saw him lying, all covered with mud, dead, outside the neighboring church. How am I ever to tell the cobbler? He is too poor to come to England, so I feel that I must lie to him for life, and say that the dog is fat and happy. Mr. Plornish, much affected by this tragedy, said, "I suppose, Pa, I shall meet the cobbler's dog in heaven." Georgie and Catherine send their best love, and I send mine. Pray write to me again some day, and I can't be too busy to be happy in the sight of your familiar hand, associated in my mind with so much that I love and honor. Ever, my dear Mr. Watson, most faithfully yours. Mrs. Horn. Tavistock House, Tavistock Square, Oct. 20th, 1856. My dear Mrs. Horn, I answer your note by return of post, in order that you may know that the stereoscopic nottage has not written to me yet. Of course, I will not lose a moment in replying to him when he does address me. We shall be greatly pleased to see you again. You have been very, very often in our thoughts and on our lips during this long interval. And she is near you, is she? Oh, I remember her well, and I am still of my old opinion, passionately devoted to her sex as I am. They are the weakness of my existence. I still consider her a failure. She had some extraordinary Christian name, which I forget. Lashed into verse by my feelings, I am inclined to write. My heart disowns. Ophelia Jones. Only I think it was a more sounding name. Are these the tones? Volumnia Jones. No, again it seems doubtful. God bless her bones. Petronia Jones. I think not. Carve I on stones. Olympia Jones. Can that be the name? Fond memory favors it more than any other. My love to her. Ever, my dear Mrs. Horn, very faithfully yours. The Duke of Devonshire. Tavistock House, December 1st, 1856. My dear Duke of Devonshire, the moment the first bill is printed for the first night of the new play I told you of, I send it to you, in the hope that you will grace it with your presence. There is not one of the old actors whom you will fail to inspire as no one else can, and I hope you will see a little result of a friendly union of the arts that you may think worth seeing and that you can see nowhere else. We propose repeating it on Thursday, the 8th, Monday, the 12th, and Wednesday, the 14th of January. I do not encumber this note with so many bills, and merely mention those nights in case any one of them should be more convenient to you than the first. But I shall hope for the first, unless you dash me NB. I put Flora into the current number on purpose that this might catch you softened towards me and at a disadvantage. If there is hope of your coming, I will have the play clearly copied and will send it to you to read beforehand, with the most grateful remembrances and the sincerest good wishes for your health and happiness. I am ever, my dear Duke of Devonshire, your faithful and obliged Mr. Thomas Merton. Tavistock House, Wednesday, 3rd, 1856. My dear Merton, the inspector from the fire office, surveyor by the by, they called him, duly came. Wills described him as not very pleasant in his manners. I derived the impression that he was so exceedingly dry that if he ever takes fire, he must burn out and can never otherwise be extinguished. Next day I received a letter from the secretary to say that the said surveyor had reported great additional risk from fire, and that the directors, at their meeting next Tuesday, would settle the extra amount of premium to be paid. Thereupon I thought the matter was becoming complicated, and wrote a common-sense note to the secretary, which I begged might be read to the directors, saying that I was quite prepared to pay any extra premium, but setting forth the plain state of the case. I did not say that the Lord Chief Justice, the Chief Baron, and half the bench were coming, though I felt a temptation to make a joke about burning them all. Finally, this morning comes up the secretary to me, yesterday having been the great Tuesday, and says that he is requested by the directors to present their compliments, and to say that they could not think of charging for any additional risk at all, feeling convinced that I would place the gas, which they considered to be the only danger, under the charge of one competent man. I then explained to him how carefully and systematically that was all arranged, and we parted with drums beating and colors flying on both sides. Ever faithfully, Mr. W. C. Macready. Tavistock House, Saturday evening, death, 1856. My dearest Macready, we shall be charmed to squeeze Willie's friend in, and it shall be done by some undiscovered power of compression on the second night, Thursday, the 14th. Will you make our compliments to his honor, the deputy fiscal, present him with the enclosed bill, and tell him we shall be cordially glad to see him. I hope to entrust him with a special shake of the hand, to be forwarded to our dear boy, if a hoary sage like myself may venture on that expression, by the next mail. I would have proposed the first night, but that is too full. You may faintly imagine, my venerable friend, the occupation of these also grey hairs, between Golden Marys, Little Dorrits, household Wordses, 4 stage carpenters entirely boarding on the premises, a carpenter's shop erected in the back garden, sighs always boiling over on all the lower fires, Stanfield perpetually elevated on planks and splashing himself from head to foot, Telbin requiring impossibilities of smart gasmen, and a legion of prowling nondescripts forever shrinking in and out. Calm amidst the wreck, your aged friend glides away on the Dorrit stream, forgetting the uproar for a stretch of hours, refreshes himself with a 10 or 12 miles walk, pitches headforemost into foaming rehearsals, placidly emerges for editorial purposes, smokes over buckets of distemper with Mr. Stanfield aforesaid, again calmly floats upon the Dorrit waters. With very best love to Miss Macready and all the rest. Ever, my dear Macready, most affectionately yours. Miss Power. Tavistock House, December 15th, 1856. My dear Marguerite, I am not quite clear about the story, not because it is otherwise than exceedingly pretty, but because I am rather in a difficult position as to stories just now. Besides beginning a long one by Collins with the new year, which will last 5 or 6 months, I have, as I always have at this time, a considerable residue of stories written for the Christmas number, not suitable to it, and yet available for the general purposes of household words. This limits my choice for the moment to stories that have some decided specialties or a great deal of story in them. But I will look over the accumulation before you come, and I hope you will never see your little friend again, but in print. You will find us expecting you on the night of the 24th, and heartily glad to welcome you. The most terrific preparations are in hand for the play on 12th night. There has been a carpenter's shop in the garden for 6 weeks, a painter's shop in the schoolroom, a gasfitter's shop all over the basement, a dressmaker's shop at the top of the house, a tailor's shop in my dressing room. Stanfield has been incessantly on scaffoldings for 2 months, and your friend has been writing Little Dorrit, etc., etc., in corners, like the Sultan's groom who was turned upside down by the genie. Kindest love from all, and from me. Ever affectionately, Mr. William Charles Kent. Tavistock House, Christmas Eve, 1856. My dear sir, I cannot leave your letter unanswered, because I am really anxious that you should understand why I cannot comply with your request. Scarcely a week passes without my receiving requests from various quarters to sit for likenesses, to be taken by all the processes ever invented. Apart from my having an invincible objection to the multiplication of my countenance in the shop windows, I have not, between my avocations and my needful recreation, the time to comply with these proposals. At this moment there are 3 cases out of a vast number in which I have said, if I sit at all, it shall be to you first, to you second, and to you third. But I assure you, I consider myself almost as unlikely to go through these 3 conditional achievements as I am to go to China. Judge when I am likely to get to Mr. Watkins. I highly esteem and thank you for your sympathy with my writings. I doubt if I have a more genial reader in the world. Very faithfully yours. Prologue to The Lighthouse. Spoken by Charles Dickens. Slow music all the time, unseen speaker, curtain down. A story of those rocks where doomed ships come to cast them wrecked upon the steps of home, where solitary men the long year through, the wind their music and the brine their view, warn mariners to shun the beacon light. A story of those rocks is here tonight. Eddystone Lighthouse. In our frail bark of fancy, swift as air, they are but shadows as the rower grim took none but shadows in his boat with him. So be ye shades, and for a little space, the real world a dream without a trace. Return is easy, it will have ye back too soon to the old beaten dusty track. For but 1 hour forget it, billows rise, blow winds, fall rain, be black ye midnight skies. And you who watch the light, arise, arise. Chapter 4. Toiling along in weary plight, through heavy jungle mire, these 2 came later every night to warm them at the fire, until the captain said one day, O seaman good and kind, to save thyself now come away, and leave the boy behind. Chapter 5. The child was slumbering near the blaze. O captain, let him rest, until it sinks, when God's own ways shall teach us what is best. They watched the whitened ashy heap. They touched the child in vain. They did not leave him there asleep. He never woke again. This song was sung to the music of Little Nell, a ballad composed by the late Mr. George Linley to the words of Miss Charlotte Young and dedicated to Charles Dickens. He was very fond of it, and his eldest daughter had been in the habit of singing it to him constantly since she was quite a child. End of vol.